welcome to Sip and Spin. My name is Skylar, and over there in the cute little beanie and a sweater with skulls all over it is Brittany.
Hello, it's Unis Honest.
Ah.
This is a variety podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing. What are we talking about today?
So, we had such a good time last week, talking about psychology. It was nice, it was fun. Then we spun that dreaded wheel, and we got true crime. So, we are talking about true crime cases today. So,
yeah. Buckle up.
Yeah. It's not going to be fun for any parties involved. And I'm going to go ahead and give a trigger warning now, but I will give another one at the beginning of my case because it's rough, like really rough. So, yeah, trigger warning for child abuse, torture, neglect, homophobic language. Well, not really homophobic, but homophobia. Yeah, child abuse and torture. That's the big one. So please be wary of that. I'm sure we'll put in a timestamp for when the outro is, so that way if you just want to listen to Brittany, skip past my part and get to the outro, you are more than welcome to do so, because I understand completely that it can be hard to stomach. Mm-hmm. So what are we drinking?
Well, we decided on the second wheel, because you did spin twice, was Brittany's choice, and I chose Moscow Mules. So I made us a couple of Moscow Mules, and
I'm excited.
I want to drink.
Yeah, we're going to need it to get through this.
Are we going to try and cheers? Now, these are, not metal, so it's not going to be a good sound.
Well, we might as well.
Cheers! Told you it was going to be bad.
Donk.
Donk.
Oh, yeah.
Muley. I love ginger so much.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the only difference is the last time I put mint in mine, but other than that,
there's lots of I went with the completely base one,
mm-hmm.
but I like strawberry mules. I like Kentucky mules, which uses whiskey. I know you wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
But I like a mule. I'm gonna tell you.
And that was really good, so I'm happy about it.
Nice. And you had something you wanted to say before we started today? Something about you have an apology?
Oh, I completely forgot about that. I literally told Brittany, I was like, I have a public apology.
5 minutes ago.
Yeah, literally right before we started recording. But then I forgot. So yes, in our cooking episode, when we were talking about languages and travel, the episode number 3, I said, we were talking about, me learning Mandarin, and Brittany was like, oh, we should go to China together. You'll just have to speak for me. And I was like, yes, I'll just point at you and be like, Tashi Mugorin. And I said Mugorin for she is an American, but it's Megorin. And I would just like to say, Doivichi, which is sorry. And then also, Woye she Megorin. I'm also an American. So I corrected my... learned, and I'm sorry for mispronouncing it, but before anyone sends any messages, I'm aware that I mispronounced it. As soon as I listened to the recording, I was like, I totally said that wrong. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to say something about that.
So I mispronounce American words all the time, so I think they'll let you have that.
I hope so. Do you have anything?
Right before you got here, I took a 90-minute nap. Because of last episode,
nice.
I knew that was a good number I could use because I really needed it.
Yes.
So I feel refreshed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, Skylar, you'll be proud. I want to tell her.
I'm so proud.
Yes.
Amazing.
The 90-minute nap, guys.
Either 20 minutes or 90 minutes.
Yeah, I knew I needed more than 20. I was like, I think I have time for 90. And I did. I woke up 30 minutes before you got here. So...
That's so exciting.
Yeah, I feel better because I was doing my notes for my case today, and it just got me really bummed, and I just got really fatigued, and I was like, I need a nap before I talk about this. So it worked.
Yeah, I didn't finish my notes until 2 a.m. last night, and then cried like a baby when I was done. I cried twice while I was doing my notes and then cried once I was done.
Oh, no.
And my dog is the worst. He would be a terrible emotional support dog. I'm sitting there in my bed bawling into my glass of wine, and he's just laying there, and he just looked at me and went back to sleep. I was like, I need puppy cuddles right now.
Yeah, my dog barks at me, like, man up. I'm sorry.
It's like my other dog, Bear. If you even look sad or like, sometimes I'll sit down on the ground outside and he'll take that as like, I'm hurt. So he'll come over and like nudge me to make sure I'm okay. I'm like, I'm
Aww.
good. I just wanted to sit down with you. And he's like, so you're okay? I'm like, I'm okay.
Everything's okay.
But then Bo, he's just a asshole, I guess. Like, did not care at all.
All my pets are assholes.
Yeah, I'm worried about having this yarn out with Celeste here. I'm like, should I put it away?
If you feel a tug, it's probably her.
Okay. Yeah, I brought crochet to do during Brittany's case because I did it like true crime. I'm gonna have a tough time getting through this episode. So while Brittany does her case, I'm going to be crocheting, and then while I do my case, I have my little Todoroki stress ball, just knocking everything off of the desk.
Yes, there's also a peach one here if you need it as well.
Yeah,
I kept it in here.
I'll just like double,
yeah, double stress. All right, I guess we will just get right into it then. And I guess since Skylar did, I'll also do a trigger warning for my case. It involves a young girl. It involves murder. It involves I don't know how to trigger warn this, but I feel like it should be there. Like social media stuff, and you'll see like an e-girl stereotype, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Lolita, all that. So if that like stuff bothers you too, this is probably not what you want to listen to. And stabbing. So this is the murder of Bianca Devins. Have you heard of her?
I have not.
Okay, it is fairly recent. This happened in July of 2019.
Oh, that is recent.
Yeah. And like it's still like ongoing because Corona kind of messed everything up. So he's still not, like, you'll see. So yeah, very recent, but I thought
they just like haven't had the trial yet to say he's guilty.
Yeah, I'll explain it at the end. You'll see. But it's really recent, but I thought it was important, especially since we all kind of spent the last year at our house, and it involves a lot with like mental health and all that kind of stuff. So it seemed like a good place to start. And I didn't know about this until I researched it. So, but it's kind of a bummer, guys.
I'm just gonna crochet away. I swear I'm listening. I just may not be looking at you, but I swear I'm listening.
No, you're good. On July 12th, 2019, Bianca Devins and Brandon Clark were going to a concert in New York City. Her mother says that Bianca was very excited at this concert, as it was her first adult concert. It was the first time she's ever been able to go to a concert by herself. So you know that's an exciting thing.
Oh, yeah.
I remember mine, yeah.
I snuck to Atlanta without telling my mom.
Okay, that's a big deal, Skylar. You don't do that, people.
I told her I was going to be in Murray for the weekend.
Skylar!
To visit my friends, and we went to see an NCT concert in Atlanta. And I did not tell her, and she didn't find out till months later, till my aunt snitched on me at Christmas. And then she was like, do you have any other secrets I can ruin Christmas? And I was like,
Probably.
Probably. But yeah, I snuck to Atlanta for my first ever adult concert.
God, at least you weren't alone.
No, it was with Jaden.
Okay, and it wasn't a stranger's?
No.
Okay. So.
And also, Minjun was there. But she didn't come to the concert with us because she wanted to travel. So, like, she went to the CNN Center and went to the aquarium while we were at the concert.
By herself?
No, I think Jaden's aunt was with her.
Okay. Don't go places alone anymore, girls. Or guys. Just don't do it. I don't go anywhere alone. Maybe I'm just projecting.
Oh, I shouldn't go places alone because I almost got kidnapped outside of the grocery store.
Yeah, I know. It's a scary world, guys.
Story for another time.
Maybe on a less depressing episode. So yeah, she was going to her first adult concert. She was really excited. Her mother says she looked beautiful. She told her to have fun, be careful, etc. All that mom stuff. Aww. At around 7:30 that night, Bianca texted her mom, told her that they were looking for parking. And that was, unfortunately, the last thing Bianca's mom would ever hear from her daughter. Yeah.
That's so sad.
We're looking for parking. Backing up, Bianca Devins was born on October 2nd, 2001. So she's young.
Oh, she's the same age as my brother.
She's very young.
Oh my god.
This is a very rough case. A lot happens in a short amount of time. In, I think it's pronounced Utica, New York. Sorry, New York, if that's not how you say that. That's how I'm pronouncing it. It's in upstate New York, and it's about an hour outside or east of Syracuse. When Bianca was young, she was relatively extroverted and popular. She's a beautiful girl. But according to her mother, when she reached adolescence, she, quote, just lost interest in everything. And I think that's pretty common. Mm-hmm. Her mom believes that this is when her struggles with her mental illness began, which I also think is pretty common. But this is a big role in this case. Mm. So, she did make friends and open up to people. She wasn't like a complete recluse, but it was people that she had similar interests with. So, she was really into anime, drawing, and the Japanese virtual singing app Vocaloid. I've heard of it. I don't know if that's how you say that. I think it is, though. I don't know much about it. I've just heard of it. For the most part, though, people remember her as being shy and anxious. In 2010, her parents split up for the first time. It said her dad, Mike, was emotionally abusive to Kim, her mother, and the Utica police say that they do have files from Kim of multiple domestic incident complaints, so this was an ongoing thing. As Bianca grew older, she kind of took on the role herself as being her mom's defender. Mm-hmm. Because they were really close. Her mom referred to her as her best friend, and she still does to this day.
So sweet.
Yeah, so she kind of took that on herself, which resulted in her, Bianca, taking on the brunt of his anger. And so she also had to deal with that, but, she wanted to because it was her mom. Yeah. No one wants to see their mom hurt, especially when you're that close. Mike Devins left for good in 2015, and he pretty much dropped all of contact with his daughter. Kim says that Bianca was relieved by his departure, but she also felt abandoned, which I think was totally fair.
Yeah.
Because that's still your dad.
Yeah, that's just a complicated thing to go through, especially on your emotions.
Basically, like, she had to pick sides, and her mom even said, like, he was a good dad to her when he was around, but he wasn't when he wasn't. Mm-hmm. And he chose to not be there. So therefore, he chose to be a bad dad. And, of course, you're going to feel hurt by that. If every other time you were a good dad. So I'm sure that rocked her deep. Mm-hmm. Through all this, of course, her mental health struggles were becoming more and more apparent. Kim took Bianca to see multiple therapists, so she was trying to help her daughter in any way she could. Like I said, they were really close, but most of these therapists were unable to help her. In 2018, Bianca was officially diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which explained a lot of her recent erotic behaviors that were becoming more and more frequent. Her mom says, though, that her own struggles are what led to her deciding to study psychology at community college. So when she graduated from high school, that was her plan. She was really excited about that plan. Because even though she struggled to help herself a lot, and people have been quoted as saying she just could never figure out how to love herself, she was very loving to everyone else in her life. And she, took on everyone else's burdens. She was always there to talk to people, to help people, reach out to people. She was the girl who would go talk to the shy kid who no one talked to. She was that girl. Aww. She was very sweet. She just couldn't do that for herself, which is really sad, but really common. Again, everything is just so sad because it's so common. This turn of her becoming... Oh, wait, I skipped some. Sorry. Oh. By high school, her mental health issues had reached a point basically where she no longer wanted to even leave her house. And that's where it kind of took a turn for her. Mm-hmm. This turn of her becoming a big homebody led to her getting more and more lost on the internet. And it led to her creating personas, an online quote-unquote e-girl personas. And she had multiples of these on various social media sites. So Instagram, she had a Lolita goth princess thing going on. Mm-hmm. On Tumblr, her name was Switchblades. 4chan, she was known as Oxy. Discord, she was Bia or B, etc., etc. Reddit, she had all these. She was on all the sites.
And they were all different?
Yeah, and she kind of played to her audience, what I'm assuming. But all in all, it was still the sort of Lolita-esque e-girl.
So no one knew that, like, she was this, that her on Instagram was the same as who she was on Tumblr. Like, they thought they were different people.
That I don't know of. In her case, it gets a lot, like, she blew up, this case did, because all the headlines are saying she was an Instagram famous model e-girl. Mm-hmm. That's not true. She wasn't actually that big on Instagram. She only had about 2,000 followers, which is nothing. Like, that's not nothing, but it's not what I would consider a famous Instagram e-girl.
Yeah, that would be like Emma, whatever her last name is, that's got like 1 million followers?
Yeah, something like that. Very similar, like, vibes, but that's where the case, I don't really understand why they say it like that, because she got all of her followers, very sadly, after she died. Mm-hmm. But of all of those, she was fairly famous, actually, on 4chan, which...
What is that, by the way? I've never really been on 4chan.
Is an anonymous image board community. And I said what it was, and then I even said, honestly, it was after my time. I don't know much about it. I mostly just hear negative things. But basically, you post images. It's anonymous, and there are different boards that have different themes.
So Pinterest?
Maybe, but you can, like, I think still interact with people and, like, talk. Like, I honestly don't know, because I don't know much about it either.
Yeah, I was like, I've heard of it, but I didn't know if it was like that thing where people post, like,
I think it's more similar
like,
to Reddit, but with pictures. Is my base knowledge of it, which I don't really dive into either of them. Yeah. Because they both scare me.
The only reason I got Reddit was to follow K-drama recommendation, the r/K-drama recommendation, so I could get more.
Yeah, and from what I can think, 4chan works a lot like that. It has, like, the slashes and for all the different boards and groups and stuff. So as far as her fame on there, she grew quickly popular on a certain board. I can't remember what the board was called. And this is where she really leaned into her e-girl stereotype. Mm-hmm. So for that particular board, the popular girls on there had two major things in common. They struggled with mental illness, and they were very, very young. Some as young as 13, which is upsetting because of the popular girls, there were very few girls in general, because it was mostly men.
As it usually is.
Yeah. And then when these young girls get all this attention and stuff, they get roped in very quickly. It's hard to get out. Mm-hmm. I feel like, especially if you're struggling with your mental health to begin with. It's like an escape.
Yeah, I feel like people who are under 16 shouldn't have social media. That might be like a controversial thing, but when you're that young, even if you feel like you're mature and you're like, oh, I'm mature for my age, you know, I'm like, I can assure you, you may think you are, but in the grand, like, you're really not.
Yeah, and I did questionable shit when I was really young on the internet. I'll be the first. Because I was, you know, I'm ancient. I was there, like, in the beginning of the internet, basically, and chat rooms, and yeah, me and my friends would get in, like, Omegle. Like, I did Omegle in school with my friends, and that was terribly, terribly bad. But it's so much more heightened and worse now for young girls, and it's very scary.
Yeah, and the reason
but I don't want to be a hypocrite either, because I did shit too.
The reason I'm saying it is because I did that stuff, and it
fucks you up.
It does, which is why I'm, like, giving you guys a warning. If you're listening to this and you're under 16,
which I know some of you are, because I see the stats.
Yeah, we have, like, a 12 Oh my gosh, I know who the 12 to 14-year-old one is.
Okay.
It's my sister.
Okay. Skylar's sister made good choices.
Yeah, Shelby, please make good choices. I know you're on social media, which is why I made you follow me, and why I made you let me follow you, so I could see what you were doing, because I don't want anyone to be like, I'm not going to police your actions, but at the same time, I just want to make sure
But at the same time, listen to this case.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you're safe is why I'm doing it.
Oh, that's a good sister. My sister did not do the same stuff for me online. She probably should have, but she was probably doing sketchy shit too. So, like I said, we were there in the beginning, guys.
Yeah, I did it at the beginning, which is how I know. I'm like, when I'm telling you, like,
it wasn't nearly as scary as it is now.
When you're 13 and have Twitter and a 17-year-old guy is messaging you, that's weird.
Yeah, I didn't ever thank God there's no Twitter.
Even if
or
you're
Instagram.
both technically minors, a 17-year-old should not be talking romantically to a 13-year-old. At all. There's no exception for that. I do not care.
Hey, which leads me to my next bullet point.
Oh.
Bianca met many a man online, and she dated around a bit with those guys. Some for a couple of years, some were just good flings. A good amount of them were not healthy relationships or even legal for that matter. And I've read a couple of different news articles about this that had interviews with her exes, and a lot of them wanted to be anonymous. And I'm pretty sure it's just because they were old.
Yeah.
Like, that's the vibe I got, and it's very upsetting. Very upsetting. She was spiraling more and more with her mental health. She spent most of the year of 2018 away from her family, whether this was when she was running away to live with boyfriends that she met online, etc. She was doing other stuff. But in October of that year, she was sent to St. Anne's Institute, which was a residential placement facility in Albany, New York. And so there she said that she actually found a counselor she really liked and connected with. And she started to actually really being able to finally help herself.
Well, that's awesome. That's
yes. So after that stay, in February of 2019, Bianca returned home. She graduated high school. She was saying that she was happier than she had been in at least the last 2 years. She was on the up. It was looking good. Like I said, she was excited to be going to community college for psychology, to be able to help people and herself. Like, she was doing great at this point. In the spring of 2019, 17-year-old Bianca met 21-year-old Brandon Clark online.
Oh, do not be a 21-year-old talking to a 17-year-old girl.
Let me just tell you about Brandon Clark.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, I don't like to do the Predator, but I feel like I kind of had to. He liked gaming and anime, which I like gaming and anime, so I'm not hating on any of that. I'm just saying that's probably what they connected on.
Yeah, because you said
she was into that as well.
People who had the
yes,
same
and she was into cosplay. Like, she was into that whole scene. Mm-hmm. So obviously that was probably their hook.
Yeah.
As a kid, he was said to be nerdy, polite, but also obsessive. If you're a kid and they're calling you obsessive with like a negative tone is how I took it when I was reading about him, it's a problem. He also had a violent and traumatic past. When he was 12 years old, his father held his mother hostage at knife point for 10 hours.
Oh my God.
Because he thought she was cheating on him. 10 hours at knife point when he was there in the house. And it's just like,
that's horrific.
Get a divorce. Go to therapy. Don't hold your wife at knife point for 10 fucking hours. So he definitely had a troubled childhood. His father went to prison for this incident, and then really quickly after, his mother was also arrested for something completely unrelated. I don't know anything about that, but basically he was sent to the foster care system. He developed an obsession with, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this, and I refuse to go on the internet to figure it out because I don't want to see anything about it, but it's either lolicon or lolicon, which is Japanese manga featuring young girls. So, yeah.
Yikes.
So, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but also I don't really care if I am. That's what it is. I wasn't going to look it up to figure it out. And also at the same time, he was texting a 12-year-old girl when he was 16, which is what we were just talking about. All that aside, when Kim Devins met Brandon, he was charming and polite. He told her about his childhood bouncing around the foster system, so she felt for him. She trusted him to take her daughter to the concert. When Bianca met Brandon, again, she was 17, he was 21. She was getting ready to go to college. She had a plan for her life. Like I was saying, she was very excited about this plan. She made it very, very, very clear that they were not a couple. Mm-hmm. He would occasionally refer to her as his girlfriend, but she made it very clear to everyone, including him, that simply was not the case. She would complain about the sometimes creepy and obsessive messages he would send to her, but being that e-girl persona for as long as she has been, it's just something everyone in that community kind of shrugs off. And I guess the term is orbiters are like that, and I guess those are, from what I take it, mostly guys who basically obsess and quote-unquote orbit around a girl.
Oh, See,
That's a
when you
4chan term, I think.
When you
Orbiters.
said that, my first thought went to Luna because Luna's fans are called Orbits.
Maybe it's something similar. I don't know. I guess it would be the same because they're basically fans, I think, in this sense. Yeah. But apparently, orbiters are just like that. Everyone should always be like, oh, it's probably nothing. You know how orbiters are. So she was pretty numb to that sort of thing by this point, which is very sad, which is also the problem with the internet in this sense. Don't ever take any of this kind of stuff, people. If
it's happening, don't take it. Tell someone that it's happening.
And if someone else sees something, say something.
See something, say something. And if someone blows you off, then that's on them. If you are getting an uncomfortable situation or an uncomfortable vibe from someone, trust your gut. And if they keep bothering you and keep messaging you, block them. And then if they make another account and keep messaging you, I'm pretty sure you can file a police report.
Yeah, that's technically stalking.
Yeah. So take it seriously when those kind of things happen.
And
don't let anyone else blow you off and tell you that's just how people are.
Yeah. And another thing that is annoying and why I wanted to also kind of talk about it, because it is on the internet, police might brush it off. They might be like, oh, we can't do anything. They haven't done anything. But I still keep trying to file those reports because it's going to be there. And when something does happen, you don't want to not have that to back you up because internet stuff is bound to blow up eventually. Bianca knew Brandon wanted more from her, like being a girlfriend, but she genuinely thought he was okay with being friends, and he never seemed to make a big deal about it. So she was like, no, we're just friends. I don't want to date you. I have plans. Like, she was going to go off to college. Yeah. She was like, I'm nice to you. We connected. And she was a nice girl, like I said. And obviously, when you are an online, I forget the word, influencer, I guess, in a way, is what she kind of was. You are nice to everyone. Yeah. But you also should never take anything that makes you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So, on the day of the concert, July 12th, Bianca had planned to meet someone else at the concert, a man named Alex. Brandon was aware of this. Alex and Bianca kissed at the concert, and Brandon saw and was very unhappy with this. But again, they were not dating.
Yeah, she had made it clear more than once.
There are reports that they got in a fight at the concert, most likely over the kissing with Alex, but it's not completely confirmed, but I think we can all interpret that that's probably what it was. On July 13th, just before dawn, Brandon posted a few odd images to his Instagram stories. The first photo was a still frame photo from the movie Fight Club. The second was a photo taken in his car with the words, "Here comes hell, it's redemption," right? Those are apparently Hollywood Undead lyrics. I am not a fan of that, so whatever.
I've ever heard a Hollywood Undead song.
I unfortunately have, because my boyfriend listens to them sometimes.
Oh, Richard.
Yeah. The third photo was a blurry photograph of what looked like a woman's bloody torso captioned, "I'm sorry, Bianca."
Oh.
Instagram wasn't enough for him, though. At around 6 a.m., he posted a photo of a dark-haired young woman with winged eyeliner and a black tank top, her throat brutally cut and her face splattered with blood, with the caption, "Sorry fuckers, you're going to have to find someone else to orbit."
Oh my god.
Upon seeing this, most assumed it was fake. Just something for shock value, which happens often online. Someone asked where the photo was from. The original poster responded, "My fucking car. I fuck Bianca, dumbass." Then he told followers to subscribe to PewDiePie, which,
what?
I guess that's a meme. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Then everyone on Discord and Instagram were left to scramble to figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, because that's not something you just, think would happen.
Yeah, especially when she is an online person who does cosplay.
Yeah.
Yeah. At 7:20 a.m. on July 13th, a 911 dispatcher in Utica, New York, received a very weird call. Brandon Clark, very cool and collected, said the following: "I can't stay on the phone very long. I have to commit the suicide part of the murder-suicide." The dispatcher asked for him to call back the number. Asked for a callback number. He says something like, "Don't call me back. You're going to fuck up my suicide photo." Authorities were able to trace the call and found Brandon Clark lying on a green tarp. A small fire was going a few feet away. He had destroyed his laptop and hard drive with the fire. He had spray painted the words, "May you never forget me," on the ground. He was live streaming to his Instagram. He then proceeded to cut his throat before taking a selfie, which he added to his story. It was captioned "Ashes to Ashes." An officer at the scene said, "I don't think he anticipated it hurting as much as it did. He was rocking back and forth, fighting through the pain."
So they found him alive?
Yeah, they found him when he was with the knife to his throat live streaming. And then when he saw them, he was like yelling at them, and then he slit his own throat. So he was trying to commit suicide.
Yeah, but I thought he had done it like before they got there.
No. And an officer there was saying like, I don't think he expected it to hurt as much as he did because he was like not taking it very well. An officer asked where Bianca was, to which he shouted, "Where the fuck do you think she is?" That's when they noticed the dark hair peeking out from beneath the tarp he was on. Brandon survived his injuries, and after getting taken care of by a doctor, he was said to be fit for questioning. He was set to face trial on second-degree murder charges in February 2020. He pleaded not guilty. He was planning to take a defense of extreme emotional disturbance, saying that he was driven mad by seeing her kiss someone else, basically going for a crime of passion plea. He was even going to claim that he completely blacked out and forgotten everything that happened, trying to get a temporary insanity defense.
Oh, of course.
But authorities were like, no, this was very clearly so freaking premeditated. He had multiple tools, weapons, the cameras were set up, the recording, spray paint, tarp, etc. Officers could say he had a plan, and the only thing he wasn't able to accomplish was successfully taking his life. So they were like, no, you knew what you were doing. Which he clearly knew what he was doing.
Yeah, no doubt in that.
Yeah. In February 2020, he changed his tune. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder just before he was supposed to go to trial. Authorities believe he took this plea deal because they had something that had not yet been made public and was going to be presented at the trial, which was video footage of her murder that he had taken on his cell phone from the dashboard of his car. Police say it sheds a great deal of light on her final moments, and that they believe it shows one of his biggest motives for the murder, that he took her life because he was incensed she would not agree to be monogamous relationship with him. And he knew that if they saw that, because it would be played, he would not, he wanted to like get there before they did, I guess, and plead guilty himself. And like, fuck this guy, but also it was good because if it was played at trial, her mother would have to see it. Yeah. And she has avoided it, as far as I know, up until this point.
I don't blame her, I would.
So, in the video, Bianca is seen sleeping in the backseat of Brandon's car. He wakes her up to have a discussion about the kiss, basically rehashing the argument they got into at the concert. Bianca apologizes, but she also again reminds him that they are not a couple. Mm-hmm. Brandon responds that her answer isn't good enough and is then seen hitting her. Oh. This makes Bianca threaten to get out of the car and walk home if he does not take her home right that second. At this point, he attacks her with the knife that he had earlier retrieved from his trunk, again premeditated, and was hiding with the seat, premeditated. She had no idea it was coming. She had zero chance to fight or defend herself. He slit her throat. He proceeded to videotape her taking her last breaths, and then he took the photos and began the various social media posts we talked about earlier.
Oh, no.
It said that her throat was slit so bad she was almost decapitated.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Assuming he did go with his original not guilty plea and trying to get the crime of passion-esque verdict, ignoring everything else that was just previously said, there was also the contents of his search history. He had researched how to find the carotid artery? Carotid artery. I said it earlier and I was like, I gotta say it right. I stressed myself over it. I still said it wrong. He searched how to incapacitate someone. It showed how obsessed he was with Bianca specifically, how often he checked her stuff, downloaded pictures, etc., etc. He even got a tattoo of a playground swing a week after they had met for the first time, just because she liked swings. He was obsessed. So even ignoring everything else, that search history would have fucked him over in court.
Yeah.
And here's an asshole quote from him. A quote he told to the court. I think I need to realize what I did I can't undo as much as I want to. I need to face it. I apologize to all the people that knew and loved her. I apologize to everybody affected by this, to everybody who had to see that horrific picture of her. I know sorry is not enough, and it won't take back what I did. I wish I had more to give. Like, okay, whatever. With his plea deal, he faces 25 years to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Her family and authorities have said that will be there to fight that, though. Mm-hmm. He was scheduled to be sentenced in April of 2020, but with the pandemic, that was changed to November. I could find nothing else, so I assume it was rescheduled yet again. And that is the last update I have on the case as a whole. Kim Devins has started a scholarship in Bianca's name, which will provide funding for students studying psychology, and she hosted a benefit gala that featured Bianca's artwork. The goal was to honor Bianca's dream of helping adolescents who struggle with mental illness. Again, I felt this case was really important because it brings to light a lot of the ugliness of the internet. Those horrible pictures of her body and her murder video are still circulating to this day.
Are you kidding?
People send them to her family members, they send them to her friends, and they basically torture the family with them because people on the internet are horrible. It's incredibly disgusting. People pretend to be her online. If you search Bianca Devins on Instagram, you will find at least 1,000 Instagram accounts trying to just get followers using her murder.
That's horrible.
Yep. The family continues to push social media sites to take more responsibility for murders that are being streamed or shown on their services. This is not the first time a murder has ever been live streamed. And I believe I read that the Instagram stories were up for the full 24 hours, and Instagram did nothing to take his stories down.
What the actual fuck, Instagram?
Or his live stream. It was a horrible murder. It had an equally horrible fallout as the social media and the people being nasty. I think we should all just think about that a little bit. Brendan Clark was a horrible monster, but the people online doing this shit were also monsters.
Yeah, that's...
And...
so fucked up. Beyond belief, actually.
Do you want to see how beautiful she was?
Oh, she is beautiful.
She even did modeling. She's so cute.
Oh my god.
And this was like her persona online. Stuff she did. And then this is the disgusting fucker that killed her.
What the actual fuck? Oh, that ticks me off.
So that is my case.
Man, I thought yours wasn't going to be as bad this week.
I tried, but I went down a rabbit hole, and I'm sorry, guys, but I also felt it was really important, especially when everyone's just been stuck inside for over a year.
These are good things to talk about and make people aware of.
Definitely take your mental health seriously. If you see something, say something. Don't take shit from fuckers on the internet either. That's my keys. I'm sorry.
That was rough.
I know. Like I said, I had to take a nap afterwards because I was just like, I'm so sad. People suck. Would you like a birthday present?
Yes.
Would that cheer you up?
Look how my crochet's
Look
going.
at your little crochet. Cute.
Thank you. I worked really hard on it. It's kind of crooked because it keeps like curving. It doesn't stay straight, but that's okay. I'm learning.
You are. It's more than I could ever do. Like I said, I don't have it all because times are weird for shipping.
Okay.
But here's one.
Okay. Those are adorable. Okay, for the podcast listeners, it's a Gon and Killua pin. Like it's two separate pins, but they're like in a little package from Hunter x Hunter.
I thought they were cute.
And I love Hunter x Hunter. So
That made me think of you.
Thank
This made
you.
me think of you also.
Okay. Oh, it's bubble wrapped. That's not a good sign for me.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
And now you just got like a fancy water, but I liked this one.
I'm gonna cry. I love it so much.
Don't cry.
I'm gonna use this water bottle at work every single day.
Yay. I was kind of worried you already had it. I was like, I haven't seen it at work.
Yeah, no, I do not. So this is also, this is a water bottle that has the Lost Boys on the bottom from Peter Pan. And Peter Pan is like one of my favorite things in the world. I love Peter Pan. Oh.
And I knew that about her.
Thank you so much. Oh, I appreciate it.
Good. Not much. And I have, the rest is just not here. But those are the small things. I have something bigger.
I love it.
Yeah. Did that cheer you up a little bit?
Yes.
After my case.
Cheered me up very, very much.
Good.
So now we'll get on to mine.
Once again, I got sweaty telling my case. This keeps happening with true crime.
Yeah, I mean, I need to start wearing short sleeves to come up here to record.
Big props to podcasts that do true crime every single week.
Yeah, I could never. Like,
It's
I
rough.
do not understand how they do it.
I get so, I'm sweating. I'm so stressed.
I have never felt so sad. Anytime we do a true crime case, I just always feel so sad.
I know. She expects people to be better, but we're not.
And you think that, sometimes you think, like, something this bad could never conceivably happen. And then it does. And it's horrible. And just, my mask is still
I kind of noticed that. But I guess I'm just so used to seeing you wearing it at work. I was just like,
yeah.
It's a necklace.
Yeah, so my face mask that, we wear because of COVID, because wear your fucking masks.
Yes.
So I never lose it or never forget it. And since I work in the back at work, if I'm not around customers or like around stuff that just came in, I will take my mask off and just kind of like let it hang, because it's got a is necklace chain sort of, or like a glasses chain that my friend Jaden made for me to put on. Cute. Yeah, we both have these little like mask chains, so that way we can just put it around the back of our neck and never lose it and always have our mask. Yeah. But then sometimes I forget that it's on. I'm like, so Brittany has her Stardew Valley husband plushie. Is that Patrick or Sebastian? Okay. Sebi, that's cute. And then I have my Todoroki stress ball. So let's go. And then I'm gonna give another trigger warning, like I did at the beginning, just to reiterate that this is about child abuse, child torture, general neglect, frustration with the system, just homophobia. It's just a lot of different stuff, to please be warned. And if you can't stomach it, I do not blame you, because like I said, the first time I watched this documentary was when it first came out, and I had never heard of this case. And when I watched the documentary, I sobbed. And I thought, maybe since I already know what's going to happen, it'll be fine if I watch it again. No, I just cried more because I knew what was going to happen. I even texted Brittany and I was like, I'm on the first episode and it's just the intro and they showed the cupboard and I started choking.
Have you said your case yet?
No.
Oh, okay. Do you think you should tell them?
Oh yeah, it's the Gabriel Fernandez case.
Yeah.
So yeah, and most of my notes came from the documentary, not all of them. Some came from an article, and I do have an article at the end that I'm going to read from directly, because it's a timeline, because the timeline is really weird as far as when the trial happened, because it was 4 years later, and then so the timeline is just really, really odd. So I'll just tell you what happened, and then I'll give you the dates for it at the end.
That works.
So yeah, this is the Gabriel Fernandez case. So Pearl Fernandez called 911, and her message was, yes, I would like to, my son is not breathing. Her claim was that he slipped in the bathtub. Isaro Aguirre also called 911, but I'm not sure if he was in the same 911 call or called them separately. Okay. I don't know if he took the phone from Pearl and or if it was a separate call, but he also did talk to dispatchers. Dispatcher, yeah, that's right? Dispatchers? Okay. Yeah. And he said, oh my God, my son is 8 years old. When the officer clarified that they did in fact say that their son was not breathing, she then asked if he was having a seizure, to which Aguirre replied, no, he was wrestling with my other son, and when I came into the room, he was unconscious. So we've already got two different stories.
Yeah, right off the bat.
And this 8-year-old boy was Gabriel Fernandez, and as things progressed the night of the 911 call and the night of Gabriel's death, everyone would soon realize that what Aguirre and Pearl said on the 911 call was not true. So, Gabriel Fernandez was born on February 20th, 2005. He lived with his great-uncle David and his uncle's partner Michael. I don't want to assume boyfriend or husband because it only says partner. Like, It never clarified if they were just boyfriends, fiancés, husbands, so I just went with partner. But they were together.
Okay.
At age 3, he began living with his grandparents. Robert Fernandez, the grandfather, took Gabriel from David and Michael, saying that Gabriel shouldn't be raised by 2 gay men. Also, there were, like, Pearl tried to make some allegations that Gabriel was molested when he was living with David and Michael. Completely not true. Okay. David and Michael, like, you see Gabriel with them, like, pictures of him with them, and you could tell how much they loved him as their own and how much he loved them. But people tried to say that, like, you know, since he was living with 2 gay men, because whenever Gabriel went over to his grandparents' house, he started talking about how much he loved David and Michael. And so then Robert was like, nope, we got to get him out of there. He's going to be gay. Yeah. Like, which is bullshit. Not... But then, 8 months before his death, he went to live with his mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Isaro Aguirre. Pearl had demanded her son back because she wanted to claim welfare on him. Okay. So she abandoned him at birth. He went to live with David and Michael. Robert went to get him 8 months from 8 months before his death. Pearl demanded him back because she wanted to claim welfare. And I believe what the story was that Pearl had told Robert and Sandra that there was a barbecue at Isaro's family's place that they wanted to take Gabriel to, and then they just never took Gabriel back. And then they called the police to, like, report a kidnapping because he was in their custody, and they just took him. But then I couldn't find out what happened with that and how it, like, he still got to stay with Pearl and Isaro if that happened, so I just kind of took it out because I didn't.
Do you think it was just because she was his mom?
Maybe. Okay. And then at that moment, Gabriel began suffering through several and different yet equally horrible forms of abuse. Ezekiel, who was 12 when Gabriel died, said that Pearl and Isaro wouldn't attack him or their sister, and that they targeted Gabriel because they suspected he was gay. Ezekiel also said that Gabriel was beaten daily, made to eat cat feces and cat litter, shot with a BB gun, had his teeth knocked out, was subject to cigarette burns, and made to wear girls' clothes to school, and then also made Gabriel eat spoiled or expired stuff. And even worse, Pearl and Isaro would force Ezekiel to join in sometimes in, torturing Gabriel. Yeah. A list of all the ways Gabriel was tortured was presented at trial, which included, and it wasn't like it didn't say like what specifically they did with it. It was like a list of all the different things used. Which included fist, feet, wooden club, wooden bat, broomstick, metal baton, belt, metal hanger, pepper spray, cat litter and cat feces, cold showers, metal handcuffs, a data cable, lighter and cigarettes, icy hot, steel-toed boots, heated spoon, BB guns, and the box. At the foot of the bed, there was a cupboard. It looks like cupboard.
Yeah, it does. Cupboard.
Pearl and Isaro would lock Gabriel inside at night, and sometimes even during the day. He was forced to sleep in the box, as they called it, while bound and gagged. So they would tie him up, I think, with the data cable, which they also would whip him with the data cable. And then they would tie a bandana around his face and sometimes shove a sock in his mouth so he couldn't say anything. And then they would handcuff the cabinet doors, to keep it from opening.
I'm sorry, I don't have a lot to say in your case. I'm just sitting here, but I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's really tough to get through, and it's horrible. Everything that happened was so
And this
horrible.
Is nervous laughter, guys.
Yeah. The only reason, I've been able to chuckle is because, of something I said that was stupid, trying to pronounce cupboard, and it's, it sucks to laugh during a case like this, but when, you kind of need something to,
Definitely.
Yeah, just to kind of keep yourself from getting too...
Worked up.
Down. Yeah, worked up. His siblings would try to sneak him food through the crack between the doors. And it was hard for him to sleep, hard to even breathe, and especially having to see his own mother and her boyfriend in the room through the crack, but not doing anything to help him because they're the ones who put him in there.
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah. Sorry this case is so rough, guys. It only gets worse, unfortunately. It doesn't get as worse, like, you don't hear a lot more about the torture Gabriel went through, but it does get frustrating because you realize just how many people failed him, especially in the system, and we will talk about that. So yeah, it's just rough all around. And if I cry, I'm sorry. I'll try not to. I'm gonna try really hard not to cry. On May 22nd, 2013, they began beating him for not picking up his toys. And when he finally stopped breathing, they called 911. Ezekiel later testified that he was forced to tell the first responders that they had been play fighting.
Poor kid.
The first thing that Asaro said to the first responders when they got there was that their son was gay. Pearl, yeah, the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What the fuck does that matter?
Exactly.
Okay.
And, like, one of the first responders, like, even testified. He was like, because where this information about, like, their responses to it all comes from the first responders who were on the stand. I was about to say on trial. They weren't on trial. They were in the trial. They were witnesses.
They were helping.
And he was like, yeah, it was really strange. Like, the first thing Asaro said to us was that Gabriel was gay. Pearl told them that Gabriel was a liar, and no matter what, he was going to lie to them.
That right there should be like
a
big ass red flag.
First responders recalled the two of them arguing with each other, and Pearl asked about her other two kids, so Ezekiel and Virginia, and her cats. She was worried about her cats being in a cage, and, and about Ezekiel and Virginia. Didn't ask about Gabriel, and...
Did you say how old Virginia was? Sorry.
I think Gabriel's the youngest, but Virginia's younger than Ezekiel. Okay. I think Ezekiel was 12.
And he was 12. Okay.
Yeah, and then Virginia was like 9 or 10, and then Gabriel was 8.
Right, okay.
And I was going to say something else.
And, because I know the case, I don't know a whole lot about it. Are any of the siblings fully related? Are Virginia and
I believe
Ezekiel?
Virginia and Ezekiel might be.
Okay, and are they the boyfriends?
No.
Okay. So he's completely outsider.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because she was worried about her other two kids and the cats, and one of the detectives on the scene was trying to, like, get their statements separately, because in a case like that, you want to talk to them separately.
Yeah.
And the defense attorney was like, so they didn't go in the ambulance with Gabriel because they were giving statements. And so the defense attorney was like, but did you force them to stay? Like, you forced them to stay. And he was like, no. We have had parents fight and kick their way screaming to get into the back of an ambulance with their kid if something happened to them.
Yeah.
They didn't, if they had said, we didn't have to get their statements right then. If they had said that they wanted to go in the ambulance, they were free to leave. They were not in custody. We weren't detaining them. If they had wanted to go to the ambulance, they were completely free to leave.
But they clearly didn't
But
care.
they didn't.
Yeah.
And then, so as you can see, like, Gabriel is something that's known as the family scapegoat, which is where one child will receive all of the blame, regret, and failings of the family, and it's all put on that one child.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunately what Gabriel was.
8 years old.
So, on that night, Gabriel Fernandez was found in his mother's home, naked and horrifically injured, including, but not limited to, shattered ribs, a cracked skull, BB gun pellets? I meant pellets. BB gun pellets lodged in his body, and burns. When Gabriel was taken to the hospital, the EMS paramedics were able to get his pulse back, but in the hospital he coded. They resuscitated him several times, but he would just keep coding. They moved him from the hospital he was first taken to like an LA specialized children's hospital in like trauma injury and stuff. But I believe when they got there, he coded again and they could not revive him. So he had a depressed skull fracture, his throat looked burned, he had bruising and cuts on his face, black eyes, cuts all over the rest of his body, and one was even right above his genital region. He had abrasions on the tops of his feet, ligature marks on his ankles. There was a BB gun pellet in his lung and groin, like lodged in his lung and in his groin area, and cigarette burns from someone putting cigarettes out on his skin. He had bilateral rib fractures, which are particularly painful because periosteum, which is the covering of soft tissue around the bone, and it's where all like the nerve endings are. So when a bone is fractured, it moves and irritates the periosteum, and when it's on the ribs, just even breathing causes the bone to move and will irritate the periosteum.
Okay.
So that's why, like, rib fractures are particularly painful.
Yeah, for sure. Does it specify if the throat burning is outside or inside?
On the outside. It was, like, the skin on the outside.
Burnt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that one, like, tripped me out more than the others. I was just like, oh God, was it inside or outside? Either way, it's horrible. Yeah.
It was, everything about this is just horrible. Every single part of him was covered in some kind of injury, and that's not an exaggeration. Every single part of him was covered in some kind of injury and at a different stage from almost healed to brand new. The autopsy took 2 days to complete because of how extensive the injuries were. Dr. James Ribe, I think it was either Ribe or Ribe, R-I-B-E, was the one who performed the autopsy, and he said he had never had to perform an autopsy that long.
I can't imagine doing an autopsy.
He also took special note of the thymus gland, which is a gland located in the body of children around like where a tie would be knotted, so like right here.
It's only in children?
Yeah, like once you grow up, it kind of goes away.
Okay.
At least that's what I believe he made it out to seem, because he was like
in children. To specify, yeah.
Yeah, because he was like in children and young adults.
Okay.
So I was like, I guess like as you get older, it just goes away. But it's like kind of where like you would knot a tie, like a necktie.
Okay.
And it's like this soft white like gland. And it's supposed to weigh between 35 to 50 grams, sometimes even up to 100 grams. Gabriel's was 10 grams, and it was shriveled up and thin, which is an indication of stress atrophy. Which means he had been under severe emotional and physiological distress for a period of months. He also had a subdural hematoma, which is like bleeding in the brain, caused by blunt force trauma. And when they asked him, they were like, could you get it from slipping and falling off a bike, anything like that? He was like, no, it's strictly
deliberate
blunt force trauma. And Dr. Ribe stated Gabriel's official cause of death as a sequelae, which sequelae is Latin, and it comes from like sequi, which means to follow, and then sequela is like a consequence, and then sequelae is just the plural form of that, but it comes from Latin. All of those are Latin, but it comes from seque, which is follow. So like sequela would be the consequence because it follows an event, and then sequela is just the plural form of that. So his official cause of death as a sequelae of blunt force trauma and child neglect, with the manner of death being stated specifically as homicidal. So the cause of death, blunt force trauma, and neglect, manner of death, homicidal. So that is the unfortunate and horrible, sad story of how Gabriel Fernandez died. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the Department of Children and Family Services, or the DCFS, which is what I will be referring to it throughout the rest of the case, just because it's quicker than Department of Children and Family Services. So many of the social workers were under scrutiny after this, because how could a child with so much history of reported abuse keep slipping through the cracks? And rightfully so.
So it was reported a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm about to get into that because I
was wondering.
believe there were 7 prior referrals that led to evidence of abuse, and still nothing was done. In his report case, it was listed, in one of the referrals where they went to the house, it was listed in the report, the mother shot the boy with a BB gun in his face, repeated beatings.
His face!
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And visible external injuries.
But they were like, it's fine.
And I'm going to talk about the 7 prior referrals and what each one came back with. So, October 30th, 2012, physical abuse, inconclusive. October 30th, 2012, general neglect, substantiated. April 13th, 2011, general neglect, unfounded. These next 3 are all from February 26, 2007. Emotional abuse, unfounded. Physical abuse, unfounded. General neglect, unfounded.
3 of these were in the same month.
The same day.
The same day?
Yeah.
And, okay.
November 24th, 2004. Physical abuse, unfounded. August 21st, 2003. Severe neglect, unfounded. For the last 2, I believe what it meant by not this family, but the mother is the perpetrator, means that the last 2 listed were other reported abuse about Pearl Fernandez,
Specifically.
but not to Gabriel, because Gabriel was born in 2005, and those last 2 were in 2004 and 2003. So I think it was her history of abuse as well.
Oh, okay.
So it was things that were reported. The first 5 were Gabriel, last 2, something that happened with Pearl, that she was the perpetrator of the abuse in those last 2.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't to Gabriel.
Okay.
It gets worse.
Good. Great.
One of Gabriel's teachers, his first grade teacher, Jennifer Garcia, filed a case with them, and the social worker who investigated was Stephanie Rodriguez, but she said that she found there was no evidence of abuse.
So the teacher was concerned, reported it, and the caseworker was like, no, you're wrong.
Although he went to the house and was like, nothing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for a teacher to get involved, because they have rules on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wait. She makes more than 1 call.
Oh, that poor girl.
Police were also called more than once, and each investigation came back with no evidence of abuse. So Rodriguez was actually a newer employee, and the DCFS puts new workers on emergency response cases. That's just what they do. When they get new workers, they put them on emergency response cases.
That seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, which is not smart, because the emergency response workers should be people who know the system and know what to look for, because they're always the first ones to the scene. When you've been doing it for a long time, you can go into a house and look and see evidence. But if you're new, you don't really know what you're looking for. You don't have that. So why would you send new people to emergency response?
You wouldn't. I have no words for that. Okay.
Yeah. There's even a medical hub. I believe it was called USC something, but it was a medical hub that specifically was set up and partnered with the DCFS, that was open 24/7 to see every single child that had a case report. There was this nurse who was a child abuse nurse at a hospital, but so many things would go under because they were just understaffed and they had so many coming in, and she was like, I've got to do something about this. So she opened up her own medical hub, hired all of these people who knew what they were doing and could see that, and made it open 24/7 so they could see every single child. The DCFS knew that they were there, knew that they were partnering with them.
I feel like you're about to say something that's going to make me mad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I'm this sounds great. Good.
So there are 3 steps to these kinds of reports. Mm-hmm. The first step, make the report. The second step, social worker gets sent. The third step, child gets sent to a medical hub to be seen.
Right.
And Gabriel was never sent to one, even though it was there.
Even though he was so obviously abused.
Yeah. And like I said, and the doctor who specialized in child abuse, who set up the hub, even pointed out that the DCFS knew they were there to check out those kids. And at that point, Gabriel had so many physical injuries. And she said, at that point, Gabriel had so many physical injuries. If they had seen him at that point, then they could have prevented it by confirming that he was indeed being abused and get him out of that house.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not rocket science.
But Gabriel was never sent there. But it is unclear on whether or not the social worker didn't send him or whether or not Pearl didn't take him. But, like, the doctor who had opened it up was so, like, you could tell how frustrated she was that she never got to see him. Because she was like, we're there for a reason. Like, I did this for a reason. Yeah. And she was, like, frustrated that she never had a chance to, like, see him because she could have helped. She could have gotten it, but...
I can't imagine, how she feels. If the social worker, like, set that up, though, would there not be a report of that? And then you, like, if the social worker was like, yeah, he needs to go here, and it was just Pearl not taking him, would there not be a report that the social worker required that?
There should be.
Okay.
But you'll notice with a lot of the reports, a lot of them aren't filled out correctly, so there's really no way to know.
Because they're new people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so part of it seems like either she just really, because she kept saying, like, unfounded, there's no evidence, so she could have just not sent him to one and been like, he's fine.
Was it the same worker each time?
Stephanie Rodriguez went to that house a lot.
Okay.
I believe her supervisor went with her once.
The supervisor? Okay.
And
still nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Damn.
Garcia made several calls to the hotline, and nothing seemed to come of it. One day, Gabriel came in looking particularly
Okay.
bad. So when the other kids went to recess, she pulled Gabriel aside and asked him what happened. He said it was that he fell while playing. Garcia asked to tell her what really happened, and he got really upset and angry and said, "My mom shot me in the face with a BB gun, okay?"
Oh my god.
So Garcia asked why he didn't tell her that first, and he said that because when I tell you and that lady comes to our house, because when I tell you, that lady comes to our house, and when she comes to our house, things get worse. Which is such a tough spot to be in, because you want to help, but then at the same time, you're like, you don't want to make things worse. But
yeah, but the help should help.
Yeah, but at that point, like, it was so obvious that the social worker should have had him removed from that situation.
If there's this many fucking reports,
that teacher shouldn't have had to, like, weigh the chances of letting Gabriel stay in that house without saying anything, or sending another social worker to check it out and potentially making things worse for him, because at that point he should have been out of that house. There was no reason for him to still be there.
Yeah, for 100%. That poor teacher. Can't imagine.
Her interview, I'll talk more about her later. I don't remember some of it. I didn't take notes on. Some of it I did. Like, I do talk about her impact statement, just very briefly. And she did have, like, talk about how she felt when she found out. And I don't think I wrote it down, but if I didn't, I'll talk about it, because it was rough.
Imagine the guilt she probably feels, even though she tried, clearly.
Yeah. And Gabriel's reports from the visits even listed his injuries in the report, and they should have required a medical follow-up. Even if he was saying it was an accident, it still required a medical follow-up.
Yeah, because he's still a fucking child.
Yeah.
Like, he's 8.
Because even if the child and the parents, like, if the parents say it's an accident and the child is saying it's an accident, then
it's like, cool, still let us check.
Yeah, like, it still requires a medical follow-up. You still have to get seen.
You can't see everything. Okay.
Garcia made one more call to Stephanie Rodriguez when his eye was completely red from all of the blood. Like, the white behind his eye was completely red from all of the blood. And he had a rash and, like, peeling skin on his forehead. And so she called and never got a call back. Garcia still feels anger and guilt, and because she was like, I don't think anyone can say in this that they truly did everything that they can. Even I still feel guilty that I could have done more. And she said that she hopes the social workers get a max sentence of whatever they can get, because she can't figure out why they didn't see what she saw, which I completely agree with her, because I don't understand how.
Baffling.
And then, so when a social worker goes to a house, they have a body chart that they're supposed to mark injuries on. Stephanie made a body chart, but it only had the one mark but the only one marked was the one on his butt from the belt, which is the very first report, because what had happened was Gabriel came to Miss Garcia, the teacher, and was like, is it normal for your mom to hit you with a belt? And she was like, I mean, she said something like, like, it can be, like, it just depends. And he was like, but is it normal for your mom to make you bleed? And that's when Garcia was like, oh my God. And she called the hotline and was like, I need to know if this case is reportable or not. So she talked to the person on the hotline and told him what happened. And he was like, yes, that's reportable. Report it. So she did. And then still nothing. But Stephanie never filled out the rest of the body chart. And Stephanie is the social worker.
Yeah,
there are a lot of names.
Stephanie. I remember that one. I don't like her.
But she never filled out the rest of the body chart with the clearly visible injuries, like the eye and the forehead. Yeah. And if she had done that, then it would have been clear that he was being abused. And she just didn't fill it out. So I did talk about the thing with Jennifer Garcia's feelings about when she found out Gabriel, which was the guilt and the anger. And I was like, yes.
Yeah, I would be the same. I would be so fucking pissed.
Gabriel had also been writing notes that had hints of suicidal thoughts.
At 8?
At 8.
Okay.
And the in-home counselor let Pearl talk to the child welfare hotline agent instead of Gabriel.
Okay.
And Pearl has had run-ins with the DCFS before. Even before Gabriel. Like, before she had Gabriel. So she knew what to say. She made it seem like since he had lived with her mom, he was just wanting attention so he could go back and live with her mom, Sandra, the grandma. And that he wasn't in any imminent danger of hurting himself because he had written the note 2 weeks ago and nothing had happened. And they just took her at her word. Never talked to Gabriel, never asked Gabriel how he was feeling. They just took Pearl at her word. Which, in these kind of cases, never take the parent at their word.
I say, how is that even possible? Okay.
But this is how most of the DCFS visits and the other child welfare visits and the police officer sent to check on the home all seemed to go. They just would talk to the parent. And if they saw Gabriel, he would just be like, they would either say that Gabriel was lying, and then they would believe the parents over Gabriel. You cannot believe the parents when there are clear...
When you get called somewhere twice, even, why are you not...
It's so fucking frustrating. Yeah.
Very upsetting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I don't have great input of time again, so...
And the DCFS really does try to protect itself.
Fucking clearly.
Shirley Darlene Starr, a retired social worker and former colleague of the social workers that were tried, talked about how the DCFS is not to blame. And wait for this.
Oh, great.
And that if she was the teacher, she would not let that kid out of her classroom. He would not go home. And
that's kidnapping.
Literally.
She couldn't do that.
That's my next note. Teachers can't just kidnap children, even if it's for the child's benefit. That's why we have social workers.
That's why she did what she was supposed to do.
Like, Jennifer Garcia did, and I know
literally everything she could.
And I know she feels that she could do more, because she said that she was like, I don't think anyone in this case did everything that they could have. I don't feel like I did it. But she did. She made 4 different reports.
She fucking tried.
Called the social worker personally and never got a call back. But she can't just take Gabriel home. That's kidnapping. She could get fired, lose her teaching's license, or get arrested.
And based on everything else, she would have. Based on how this is going, it would have not worked out for her.
And Gabriel would have sent back home, and if all of that things had happened to her, she would have had, Gabriel wouldn't have had Jennifer Garcia in his corner anymore, because she would have lost everything if she tried to do that. The one person Gabriel had, if you're trying to say that she should have taken him home or kept him in the classroom, that, no.
Yeah.
And then she said that her coworkers were being used as sacrificial lambs for everybody else in this case because people were just looking for someone to make look bad so that they can look good. Okay. I was like...
Fuck this place. Okay.
I hate what was her fucking name? Shirley Darlene Starr. And she had this white hair and like it was like a bob, like pixie bob cut, and was like wearing this pink sweater with a scarf, and I was like, I already hate you. Like you can just tell, like she was just an old white lady who thought,
an old quote unquote Karen.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it.
I was like, how could you try?
How do you defend this case at all?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Okay.
But like literally the social workers knew what was going on and didn't do anything about it. And they say that removing the child from the home is always the last resort, and removing the child can cause serious...
Then what is the point? Okay.
We'll get into it.
Keep going.
And removing the child can cause serious stress and PTSD in the child, and studies show that children do better in their biological homes. And they want to resolve and remedy the family instead of breaking it. Which, I understand that. I do.
Not in this case.
But when you remove a child from... But, like, because social workers and, like, the DCFS will remove children from African-American families because the parent has, like, a marijuana drug charge felony and remove the child from that home of a parent who is trying their best, who maybe did, like, made one mistake and, like, got a felony drug charge for marijuana.
Yeah. Okay.
And they will take the child from that home. And then keep a kid in a home like Gabriel's when that child is being severely and repeatedly abused. Like, that's not okay. Like, it just doesn't... And, like, those kinds of systems, those county departments, they are all so racially biased, and because it's systematic racism systemic racism in more than one department and industry that just is spread all of, and I can't stand it.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, we always try and keep the child in the home. No, you don't. Because you will literally take a child away from a parent who's made a mistake and they're still trying their best and they regret the mistake they made to this day. But then keep Gabriel in his home. When
clearly
he needed out.
Yeah.
And it's all because of the family preservation rule. But the family preservation rule is all about the parents' rights and not the children's rights. The system, like, there is more than one way that the DCFS system is broken, but, like, the main one is that they care more about the adults than the kids and will ignore the warning signs and let kids stay in that home because they
At that point, what is the point of you?
Yeah, like...
Okay.
And a lot of people, like, they would try and come back and be like, well, the social workers didn't know. They didn't know. Like, you can't just say that they didn't know because they did. It
didn't care.
It was in their own reports. And with these reports, they had more than enough evidence to do more. And to say, keep the child in the home. And, like, and what I really, like, I started saying this sarcastically, but I actually did really like this quote from one of the social worker who actually called out the DCFS, what was it earlier? He was the same social worker that talked about that it's not smart to let new workers do emergency.
Yeah,
he was the one who talked about it.
Okay.
And he also said, the saying, keep the child in the home if at all possible, is supposed to mean if the child is safe, then keep the child in the home if at all possible.
Right.
He was like, it doesn't just, like...
There's a big difference.
He's like, it's not just a catch-all. Like, keep the child in the home if you can. No, it's if the child is safe, then you can keep them in the home if you can.
Seems like fucking common sense. My hat fell off. I'm so mad.
Like, this guy, I'm like, why is he the only smart person here? I'm like, what? But Gabriel clearly was not safe. In episode 5, they even put in, like, a good example of what a good response and welfare check to what a call to a child abuse hotline should look like. It was very simple. I mean, the social worker even went there super late, because a lot of the things were like, oh, they went there super, super late. Like, it was like 2, 3 in the morning. This social worker showed up at the house at like 2 in the morning, took the time to explain the call they got to the parent. They were like, this is the call we got, this is what was said, and that they needed to come in and look at the baby and just check around the house and make sure everything was okay. And when they realized the baby was happy and healthy, like, they checked around the house, made sure there was food in the fridge, running water, made sure just everything was okay. like, they had the foster mother take the child's clothes off just so they could look at the baby both front and back. Then they redressed the child and looked around the house, and that was it. They just made sure everything was okay. And if that's the way you handle it, you have to see the child. You have to see the child, look around the house. It's not that hard, even if it is 2 a.m, because it was when she did
that's
it. And
your job.
She still did it because that's what you're fucking supposed to do.
Literally your job. But okay.
And like I said, and when they realized that the baby was happy and healthy, they told the foster mother how to handle that and to cut all communications with the person who made the call, because it was just like an ex-girlfriend of the foster mother who had made the call, and the social worker was worried they would try and make those calls again. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Talk to the parents, look at the child, look at the house. And when you realize that, like, oh, everything is fine here, let's get to the bottom of why this call was made. And the social worker even tried to help the foster mother from those calls being made again, because she could see that there was nothing wrong in this home.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, it's not hard. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. And so I keep repeating myself, but I'm so frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't.
Because, yeah, it should be common sense. Yeah.
The DCFS is a very secretive and such a large organization that most of the time there is so much corruption behind everything, from intentional to malpractice to just plain laziness.
And you gotta say, what is the point of you?
Yeah. And then it just returns kids remaining in horrible situations because the DCFS just won't do anything about it. And with this case, all of that was finally brought to the surface, as you can tell from what we talked about earlier. And there's one anonymous source who worked for the county who was being threatened about their job to the reporter, as the county officials looked through the reporter's emails to see what the employee had said and what he had replied, because they wanted to keep it so tightly wrapped. Like, they were looking through the reporter's stuff to figure out, like, what employee was talking to him.
Can they even do that?
I fucking guess. I don't know.
Okay.
The DCFS will literally threaten anyone who has concerns and unsettling feelings about the systems, that they will, and threatens them that they will be punished with disciplinary action, and then will try to make the person the one who is the problem, like the one who called it out. Like, there's this guy who's named Saul, who had concerns about how many kids that they were, like, keeping in, like, whatever the DCFS does, where they, like, keep children in this big place. Okay. And it's only supposed to have, like, a certain amount of kids, but they kept exceeding it and just keep it. And he brought it up, and then, like, they tried to dox him for it. Like, it was insane.
Okay.
Because literally the DCFS will do anything to maintain status quo and maintain the system. This source, the anonymous one that was talking to the reporter, had occasional access to confidential documents about the way child abuse cases were handled, which county officials would always ask to receive as quickly as possible, because ultimately they would be the ones to be responsible for what happened, and that could reflect their re-election.
Okay.
It's all politics.
So, yeah,
and that's what pisses me off.
All politics. Great. Fuck the kids. It's all politics.
All politics. And it makes me so angry. And it makes me so upset, because if this case had been handled properly, Gabriel would still be alive today.
Yeah, it could have been over. Yeah. Which is, unfortunately, most true crime cases. If anyone was doing their fucking job correctly in the beginning, it probably could have been prevented.
It pisses me off so bad and frustrates me so much.
Yeah.
The anonymous source gave the reporter the document and the reports because even though what they were doing was illegal, they would rather risk that than continue to let it go on without being exposed, because that was the only way things would change. So the anonymous source that we were talking about earlier, the one who was talking to the reporter that was being threatened, he was like, he wanted to bring those things forward even though it was illegal, because he wanted to make a change.
Okay.
There are like 5 people in the story who actually gave a damn, but unfortunately got overshadowed by all the people who didn't.
All the corrupt people, yeah. I mean, fuck, yeah.
There was a security guard, Arturo. Is that how you say that? Arturo? Arturo?
Yeah, I don't know how to roll my R's,
but
oh. Sure.
I don't really know how to roll my R's.
I'll just say Arturo.
Okay.
Yours sounds nice.
Okay. Arturo Martinez, who worked for the DCSS, which is the Department of Child Social Services, and it's a branch of the DCFS, noticed when Pearl brought her 3 kids to the DCSS for filing welfare, the officer noticed that Gabriel's body, and by officer, security guard, because he was like an armed officer but was a security guard.
Yeah, he didn't have like, yeah.
But he noticed that Gabriel's body was covered in injuries. He told one of the workers, Maricela Corona, and he gets a call from her later saying that her supervisor, Suzanne Harms, didn't want to report it because it was Friday and they were shutting down in 15 minutes and didn't want to have to pay anyone overtime.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
I lost my hat again.
Yeah.
Like, fine, you work in a restaurant. You don't want to serve someone 15 minutes before you close. You work in retail. You don't want customers coming in 15 minutes before you close. Fucking fine. You have kids' lives on your line? That's... No. Okay.
And even people who work in restaurants and in retail,
you still do it?
You still do it. You still have to.
I know, because I've worked in both.
Yeah. Well, I've only worked in retail, but I know how late we stay sometimes because one person just won't get out of the store.
And no one's life is on the goddamn line.
Yeah, but we still fucking do it. You have to, but it's fine.
It's Friday. Oh, God, okay, I want to throw up.
I know. It's so, I can't.
Are you done yet?
No. I told you I had 19 pages of this.
We'll definitely need another drink.
Yeah. And he said on the stand that yes, it made him up because he was getting pretty emotional, and he was like,
fair.
He was like, yes, it made me upset that he was the only one who wanted to, that I was the only one who wanted to report it. It actually pissed me off. And I was like, you go, Arturo.
God.
When Maricela gave the information on Gabriel and his address so that he could go check it out, he said, why aren't you doing it? He didn't mean it in oh, I don't want to do it. It was he was like, why aren't you doing it? It's your job. You're supposed to go investigate the situation as a social worker.
Literally. And
Maricela told him, I was told not to intervene and I don't want to lose my job.
That's what you lose your job over. If you've got... Okay.
But, the supervisor didn't want her to investigate. She didn't want to have to pay their...
And you still should.
Yeah.
If that's your job. But okay.
So then Arturo called his own supervisor, and his supervisor said, why do you want to get involved? It's not your job. It's not in your job description. Because he was a security guard.
Because he's a decent fucking man.
So Arturo hung up on him.
Good.
Literally hung up on his supervisor. Called 911. 911 told him it wasn't an emergency and to call the sheriff's office.
Oh,
He explained the situation to the sheriff's office and they said they would send 2 deputies over. And Martinez said, you are actually going to send someone, right? Because the kid looks like he needs medical attention. And they said, we'll see what we can do. And when Martinez was recalling what they told him about the we'll see what we can do, you could literally see him deflate. His eyes got sad and he's started slouching. He literally deflated. And you could just tell how much that response bothered him because he knew, and we all know, that there is something that they could have done. Yeah. And they just didn't. They just fucking didn't.
Yeah.
There's also something with the Maximus company, which is kind of why they didn't want to do overtime. Maximus is this for-profit company that assists the government in helping vulnerable population and maximizing profit. It's something I don't really know, but it is a motivator for why the departments did what they did, but it isn't directly related to the case itself. So I don't want to get into it as much because it's a lot of contract language, economics language, finances language, and I just don't understand that and process it.
Because it's just the money stuff, kind of.
Because it's a for-profit organization, and this one guy went through the contract and was talking about contract language and how certain things were a breach of contract and certain things were not a breach of contract, and I was trying to listen, but then there was the contracts language and the economics language and the finances language, and I was my brain just doesn't handle that well. I've never been good at economics, so But the corruption behind Maximus is something the documentary touches briefly in episode 4 if you do want to look into it. Like, the information's there. I just didn't want to talk about it because I was sure I would mess something up because it's just not something I'm good at understanding. So I didn't want to, like, misinform or accidentally misinform just because it was something I didn't understand.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. If before we get into why the police suck,
oh great!
I would like to take a bathroom break and get a drink refill.
Yes, that is fine. I would like to do the same. Okay. Hello.
Hi, we're back. If we sound significantly drunker, because we took like an hour-long break to talk about work, and we both drank like an entire drink, so now we're both pretty drunk. I'm very drunk. Brittany, how are you feeling?
I'm pretty drunk, but we're gonna push forward.
Yes, we're gonna get through this.
And stressed.
What?
I said I'm drunk and stressed.
Yeah. Well, I tried to squeeze my lime into my drink and I just dropped it in there, so it's fine. Anyways, let's get back to this case. Also, I would like to point out that last night I was also drinking wine while I was taking notes, and instead of writing for the last paragraph about talking about the corruption behind Maximum, is something that the documentary touches on briefly in episode 4 if you want to look into it. Corruption, instead of corruption, I put corruption, like there's a B at the end, and then instead of documentary, I put documentary. So,
documentary.
This is about how everything is going. Anyways, so the police were also hiding things. In court, the defense attorney asked for the internal affairs document to be brought forward, but the prosecution knew nothing about it. Like, they had no idea about this internal affairs document. Yeah. And the judge told John Hatami, the prosecutor, to bring forth the document. So he literally had no idea about it. So he's asking around for this document and not getting any emails back. And he asked his friend, who is a deputy, and that deputy sends him to another deputy. And he says, yeah, there is one. So Hatami asked for it, and they aren't responding. He told them the judge asked for it. Still nothing. He said they are violating the Brady law. Nothing. So then he filed a pitches motion, which is basically like saying that the deputy did something bad, and it's like the DA, the defense attorney, is trying to impeach a deputy, is what it is. It's like a pitches motion is like, you did something bad.
Yeah.
And is trying to get the deputy impeached because deputies are kind of like a elected official.
Yeah,
So they're trying to get them impeached. And the prosecutor almost never does that, because usually when the prosecution asks for something, the police just hand it over.
Right.
Like they're
supposed to.
Yeah, like they're like, oh, you're prosecuting this person we investigated. Here's everything we have on them. Here you go. But this internal affairs document, they were not giving it to the prosecutor. So he was like, the judge asked for it, told them they're violating the Brady law, then filed a pitches motion. And after that, his wife, who was a deputy and a patrol officer, she was actually threatened at her job and was like told, you know, if you're in a bad situation and no one comes to help you, you need to tell management. Because like they were literally like, oh, well, since your husband filed a pitches motion against deputies, like, you're not gonna get any help out on the field. And Hatami was like, what the fuck? Like, that's like, what? Yeah, so it was pretty rough. And Hatami realized that the police were lying and hiding something that happened, including witnesses and evidence that they just didn't share with anyone for 3 years. They had kept it all under wraps. So then he subpoenaed subpoena is like, you know, a call to court.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you know that. I don't know how many people who are listening know that. But if you didn't know what subpoena is, it's basically like, you know, being like, you are called to court. Like, come into court. is what a subpoena is. So he subpoenaed every single person in the police department that he believed was involved in some way with Gabriel's case. The file stated that deputies had been out to Gabriel's house 5 times and never saw or spoke to Gabriel, just to Isaro or Pearl, because they had marked it as a low priority, which means that police would get there at like 2 or 3 in the morning after doing other things. So Gabriel's case was marked as low priority, so they didn't get to it until after they had done everything else on their list of things they needed to do.
Right. Okay.
And when they were told it was fine, like by Pearl and Isaro, they just fucked off. They didn't file a report or anything. And one officer, Frederico Gonzalez, even offered to come back in the morning to scare Gabriel into not making these claims again, since Isaro made it seem like Gabriel was fine and was just spoiled and wanted attention.
I just opened and closed my mouth like 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes the deputies would see Gabriel, but Pearl said it was the older kids in the neighborhood who were beating up Gabriel, and a deputy put Gabriel in the back of the police car and told him that if he kept lying, he would be the one that went to jail.
Good! Take him to jail!
He would honestly be safer there. Honestly.
Okay.
So the DCFS
This
workers...
8-year-old, they're telling that too. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's this shit, it frustrates me so bad. The DCFS workers were fired and went to trial, but nothing happened to the police officers at all. They stated that the deputies' mistakes were minor and that no one would be fired.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. John Hatami was quoted in the documentary as stating, "The sheriff's office was embarrassed about some of the actions taken and refused to make statements or speak on it. But a little boy was tortured and murdered, so I think they should be able to stand a little embarrassment."
No fucking shit.
Yeah. John Hatami, like the prosecutor, I loved him. And because everyone else in this documentary was like, Gabriel died. Like, he died. And John Hatami was like, he was tortured and murdered. And like, yes. And
good, yeah.
Hatami was like the only one who was willing to be like, he was
Say
murdered.
The word. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he was. Like, everything that happened to him, it was always going to end in his murder.
Way. Yeah. Fuck.
And then, so now we get on to Jackie Lacey. Jackie Lacey was the first African-American and woman in the, like, DA position and the prosecutor position.
Okay.
In LA. And that was in, like, 2013.
Okay.
And she was the first African-American and first woman to be in that position. And she had wanted to try to get everyone involved prosecuted for their involvement in the Gabriel Fernandez case. So the mom, the boyfriend, the 4 social workers, she wanted everyone prosecuted.
Good.
And I was like, you go, Jackie Lacey.
Yes.
She is quoted saying, "We believe these social workers were criminally negligent and performed their legal duties with willful disregard for Gabriel's well-being. They should be held responsible for their actions." And I was like, you go, Jackie Lacey.
100%.
Stephanie Rodriguez, Patricia Clement, Kevin Baum, and Gregory Merritt went to court for their arraignment on felony charges, child abuse, and falsifying records that helped continue Gabriel's repeated torture and eventual death. Stephanie Rodriguez was tried because of all the things listed earlier when talking about the social worker visits, if you remember her from earlier. Mm-hmm. Kevin Baum, because he was her supervisor and she was new, so he was supposed to be there to make sure things didn't fall through the cracks, but they did, and not referring him to medical, which he's supposed to do.
Right.
George Merritt and Pat Clement, or Patricia Clement, but she's called Pat Clement, for not wanting to take the steps to remove the child from the home because they were part of the family preservation unit, which we talked about earlier. Pat Clement was actually considered a problematic worker. She was rude and unprofessional, and her story about her involvement and what happened was changed over time, and her report was straight up false.
Great.
Yeah. Great. Like, she kept changing her story, and her report was just literally false. Like,
lies.
Yeah.
Great.
In a time where Gabriel was barely showing up to school, she stated in her report that his school attendance and performance was fine. When Jennifer Garcia was literally like, he missed school for 13 days and came back with his eye completely red and had rashes and peeling skin on his forehead. He was gone for 13 days. And she in her report said that his school attendance and performance was perfectly fine.
Okay.
And she was actually the one who closed the case in April, but marked the report in a day in March.
Shut up.
To not be responsible for any actions taken in the final month. So he died in May. She closed the case in April, but marked it as she closed it in March. And George Merritt, her supervisor, didn't take any steps to verify that information, which is why he was charged.
Good.
When their attorneys filed to have the case dismissed, Judge Lamelli, who, by the way, I love this judge. I usually don't like people in like court public official positions, but this judge, I love him. Okay. Judge Lamelli. So the attorneys filed to have the case dismissed against the 4 social workers, and Judge Lamelli said, "There's enough suspicion from the evidence to prove that their conduct was reckless and or criminally negligent, and that their actions and or inactions similarly demonstrated an improper regard for human life or indifference to consequences. Therefore, the action to dismiss are hereby denied." That is the court's ruling. I was like, you go, Judge Lamelli. Like, yes.
Yes.
But unfortunately, the defense attorneys for the social workers thought there was one more thing that they could do. And they went to the appeals court to reconsider Lamelli's decision of sending this case to a jury trial. And a jury trial is basically like the basic trial you've all heard of. There's 12 people on the jury. They all vote. And they wanted to keep that from happening.
Great.
California's second appeals court did indeed throw out the case with the appeals judges finding that the social workers couldn't control the abusers and did not have custody or care of Gabriel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, what is the point of their job?
Like, that's... Yes, like, okay, sure, they can't control the abusers, but their job is to protect children that are in abusive situations.
I cannot. Okay. Fuck. Fuck it all. Fuck it all.
Yeah.
Fuck it all.
In the end, Aguirre and Fernandez were arrested and charged with first-degree murder with a special circumstance of intentional murder by torture. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Did you not like that? What?
No, that's fine. I just,
okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. God, they were both arrested. First-degree murder.
No.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
But I just... It should have never gotten to that point.
No, it shouldn't.
It's my
okay.
sigh.
Yeah, I just didn't know where your sigh was coming from. I was like, did you think something else should have happened?
No, it shouldn't have never
gotten
gotten
it should have never gotten there. I completely agree with that. Because literally there were so many signs.
It's just a sigh of like relief and frustration. Like,
yeah,
no fucking shit they were, is what my sigh was.
Originally they were going to try the couple together, but Pearl pleaded mental instability, and since it would take longer for that to be investigated, they decided to try them separately and brought Isaro Aguirre's case to trial.
Okay.
People wanted Isaro to be charged with the hate crime allegation, but because, you know, his whole thing was like, you know, his son was gay.
Yeah.
But the prosecutor, John Hatami...
Not even your son. Okay.
Yeah. In the People versus Isaro Aguirre case, decided not to because that's harder to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and since it was such a sensitive case, he wanted to focus on child abuse with a special circumstance of torture that would result in the death penalty, since it was a special circumstance case. Because when you have, like, you know, first-degree murder, special circumstance, that qualifies you for the death penalty.
That makes sense.
And with a hate crime, it's like 3 to 4 years in jail. So he was like, as much as I would like to get him charged for a hate crime, he was like, it's better to just focus on child abuse with the special circumstance of torture.
Just tack it on at the end in your mind. Because it was still there.
It was. And he was like, and I recognize it was there, and I wish that it could have been that it was also a hate crime, but when it comes down to him getting first-degree murder with the death penalty because of a special circumstance of torture versus 3 to 4 years of a hate crime, he was like, I want to focus on what will get him longer in jail.
For sure.
I was like, I understand that.
Get that. At the back of all of our minds, though, we're going to
remember
keep that in.
This definitely was a hate crime because he was raised by his gay great uncle and his partner
in a loving relationship.
Yeah, in a literal loving relationship who loved each other and loved this kid. And then David, the great uncle, he got deported and had to leave Michael and Gabriel, and he found out in Mexico where he was deported to because that Gabriel died and his whole world just went crumbling. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But ICE came for David. And so, like, Michael was still in the U.S. and David got sent to Mexico. And they were separated. And while David was in Mexico, he found out about Gabriel. And then found out about all these allegations that Pearl was making about the way David and Michael were treating Gabriel and that they possibly molested him. And he was like, he was like, I would never have done something like that. Michael would have never done something like that. And it was just, everything that happened in this case was horrible. Like,
fuck. Okay. I was just ripping out my heart.
I'm sorry.
Nervous laughter again.
Yeah. Now, the defense attorney worked to try and get Aguirre charged with second-degree murder, saying it was a fit of blind rage that led him to beat Gabriel to death. Which sometimes those things can happen. You can get into a blind rage and accidents can happen. But if you look at all of the evidence, that clearly wasn't what happened here.
Yeah, no shit.
And he even said that even with a long period of time of abuse, what killed him was the repeated beating on that night when Pearl had told Isaro that Gabriel had said that Pearl should leave Isaro. And then when Gabriel was confronted by Isaro, Gabriel called Pearl a liar twice. So that's what flew him into this blind rage. Gabriel had told Pearl, the mom, that she should leave the boyfriend Isaro. And Pearl told Isaro about that. And Gabriel was like, no, I didn't say that. And then Pearl called him a liar, and that's what got him to be beat.
He was 8 years old!
Literally!
Okay.
But that...
My niece is 6, so she doesn't understand any of that shit at that age. There's no way an 8-year-old does either.
No. None of it makes sense. Because there are 4 different stories. Gabriel slipped in the bathtub.
Right.
Gabriel and Ezekiel play fighting.
Yep.
He was beaten because they didn't pick up his toys.
Right.
He was beaten because
of this.
He told Pearl that she should leave Isaro. There are 4 different stories. None of them match up. But this had caused Isaro to fly into a blind fit of rage, and he even described that his anger was at a 20 on a 1 to 10 scale, and that he also saw red and was hyperventilating. And the defense attorney also tried to use the excuse that Isaro did try to perform CPR through the 911 operator's instructions. But, and this is where this comes in, because people are like, oh yes, he called 911 and tried to perform CPR, but I'm going to go through.
Who is on his side at all?
This paragraph about why that probably didn't happen.
Obviously.
Fine.
Sorry for getting loud. I can see the spikes.
Yeah. It's just everything pisses me off.
Oh.
But with the state of Gabriel and absolutely no blood on Isaro's face as the first responders were called, so the 911 operator was like, 30 compressions to the chest, breathe for him. And when an operator says breathe for him, that means mouth to mouth.
Right.
So with the state of Gabriel and no blood on Isaro's face, if he was performing CPR the way the operator instructed, he would have blood on his face from Gabriel when doing the mouth-to-mouth of CPR. So it is highly unlikely that he did actually perform CPR. And the way he was speaking was not consistent with somebody giving CPR. So when you're giving CPR, you know, you're doing your compressions, you're like 1, 2, 3, and you have to push real hard.
Really, like break their rib. Yeah.
Like you can, well, not the ribs, but their sternum.
Yeah.
And it's on their sternum, and you have to put enough pressure that, yes, their sternum can be broken.
But it means you're doing it.
But his voice was so steady the entire time. Like, if I mean,
like chills. Ugh.
Like, if I was going, like, if Brittany was laying on the floor right now, and I was giving CPR to her, it would be, like, so out of breath, and, like, there would be noises that would indicate that I'm giving CPR. Nothing. His voice was steady the entire time. There was absolutely nothing that indicated he was giving CPR. So, none of that, like, it's true. The whole defense attorney, which I understand, like, when you have a defense attorney, the defense attorney, even if they don't agree with what they're having to defend, it's part of their job. They have to do it. Because they've been hired in that position.
Yeah.
And the defense attorney even was like, there's no excuse for what Isaro did. Like, what he did was he abused and tortured this boy, but when he killed him, it wasn't first degree, it was second degree. And which the defense attorney was literally just trying to do his job. And I understand that, so I can't be like, the defense attorney fucking sucks, because, like, he was doing his job.
Literally.
But he was just wrong, but it was like he had to do.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. And I can't imagine how hard it is for defense attorneys to have to defend someone who they know is in the wrong.
Guilty. Yeah.
And it must be like such a moral dilemma for them to be like, it's part of my job, like I need to defend this person, but at the same time I know what they did and it's horrible.
For sure. Yeah.
So Michael Sklar, I feel for you. I do. But Isadora Aguirre and Pearl Fernandez, you guys fucking suck.
Fuck yourself.
So another reason why it probably wasn't like a reason that the second degree murder couldn't be like valid. During the entire trial, even when Ezekiel and Virginia were testifying, so while the other two kids he had come to know were on trial testifying, not on trial, while they were testifying.
Yeah.
And talking about what had happened and what they had seen and what Isaro and Pearl did to Gabriel, Isaro did not show a single emotion, no anger, no sadness, no fear, no regret, nothing. He was completely stoic the entire time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really stuck out to me was when one of the police officers, the like head detective, was talking to Ezekiel. Are you okay? No. Okay. Ezekiel had, because Ezekiel was one of the ones who, like, he was the older brother, and he had been forced to tell the police officers that it was because they were play fighting, and he had been forced to participate in, like, the beatings, and the head detective on the case was like, I need you to understand that, like, I'm the head detective, and I'm telling you this, that, like, and if anyone ever else tries to come for you, that you tell them that the head guy told you this, that you are not at fault. You are not to be blamed for this. Like, it was completely Isadora and Pearl's fault.
Yes.
And, like, just telling this, like, at that time during, like, all the interviews and investigations, I think he was probably, like, at the interviews he was like 12, but at the trial he was like 17, I think. But still, that's so young. But he was like,
too heavy.
Yeah, and he was like, none of this is your fault. And he was like, do you understand that none of this is your fault? And Ezekiel was like trying to like keep along with it, and like, yes, it's not. And he was like, and if anyone ever tells you, like, you tell them the head guy told you that this was not your fault. And I don't know, just part of that, like, it.
You're fine.
sorry I'm crying on the podcast. This case just
completely justified.
This case just breaks my heart every single time I hear about it, no matter how much I know about it or how much I talk about it. It makes me really emotional. This is, like, there are a lot of heartbreaking cases, but in my personal opinion, like, for me personally, this is the most heartbreaking one I've ever had, like, I've ever come across. It's not to say that other ones aren't heartbreaking, and not to say that if you hear this case, this is the one that has to be the most heartbreaking to you. But for me personally, it's the one that's the most heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's completely fair. You're fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
I feel bad because then I want to text you. Like, I can cut out the parts where you're crying, but, like, that part was important to tell, so now you can't cut out where I was crying.
It's fine. No one's gonna care.
Okay. So, in the People versus Pearl Fernandez, she was administered cognitive testing and was stated as performing at low level on most of those cognitive tests. In her report, certain things were listed specifically, like developmental disability, low-level intellectual functioning, and psychological instability. It was also pointed out in her report that she had at most an 8th grade education and used alcohol and methamphetamine by the time she was 9 years old and used crack cocaine by the time she was 12.
That is rough.
Yeah. Wow. And since she was still developing, she may have sustained some damage from the drugs. She had been diagnosed with a depressive disorder, developmental disability, a possible personality disorder, possible PTSD, right frontal and parietal abnormalities on recent brain scans, and an eating disorder. Also, trigger warning for rape. The report also mentioned a history of gang rape and an attempted rape by her uncle, and an exposure to domestic abuse as a child and as an adult. So that's Pearl's report.
Do any of that coincide with was it 7 or 5 protective services reports?
Those were, so the first 5 that I listed were against Gabriel, was the abuse against Gabriel.
The ones about her, though.
And the 2 where she was the perpetrator, but it wasn't for Gabriel.
Okay.
So I believe anything that happened to her wasn't reported.
Nothing. Okay. That's what I was wondering.
The psychiatrist said that Pearl was more than likely succumbing to her aggressive feelings as a result of these things. So, like, she didn't feel protected as a child, and so when she had her own, she was like, you know, she felt that aggression of, like, her not being protected and all those bad things happening to her, so she took it out on Gabriel.
But she could have also gone the opposite.
Yeah, she could have been like, these horrible things happened to me and I want to protect my kids from them. But then she saw Gabriel and was like angry at that she didn't have a good childhood, so she...
Don't come for me for not feeling for Pearl, but
I don't feel for Pearl either.
So,
like, she... And a lot of people will try and be like, oh, it was a sorrow that was trying to get Pearl to do this.
It could go in many ways.
But Pearl was like, we'll talk about it later, but she was a willing and active participant in Gabriel's abuse.
Yeah. She definitely probably felt release more than sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel for her at all.
Like, it sucks that those things happened to her, but...
She had a choice.
Morbid voice, cool dude, still not a good enough reason for murder. Like, it really isn't. Like, and it frustrates me. Like,
if anything, it should have made her more protective of
exactly
all of her children.
Because when those kind of things happen to you, like, not to get super personal again, but my childhood wasn't great. My dad was gone most of the time trying to provide for our family. Like, he worked overtime and went, like, had to do, like, travels to Florida. And we live in Kentucky, and so he was gone for, like, months. And
my mom was a truck driver. Yeah.
So and then my mom was a school teacher. And when she would come home, she would go to sleep as soon as she came home. So I would be the one to grade my mom's papers for the students. I would be the one to put them in the grade book. I would be the one to make sure my brother did his homework, ate, got a shower, went to bed. Same thing with my sister. I would make sure she did her homework. I would be the one to give her a bath at the end of the night. And then a lot of blame got put on me, and I had a lot of responsibility put on me. And when I, like, got a B in school, it wasn't, like, physical abuse, but it was definitely emotional. Like, I would get blamed. I'd be told, like, you know, you were a gifted student as a child. What happened? How could you get a B? Like, even though I was staying up till 3 in the morning doing homework, because I couldn't do my homework until I got my brother and my sister taken care of, because my mom was asleep and my dad was gone. And I don't blame either of them for that. Like, my mom has mental health issues, and my dad really did try to at least provide for us to make sure we had a roof over our head and food in the fridge. And so I get it. But at the same time, like, when I think about having a family when I'm older, if I want one, like, I'm still not sure where I stand because I'm 22 years old. I haven't really put that much thought into it. But when I do think about it, I'm like, I don't want them to have to deal with that. I want them to be able to be kids while they're still kids. And because I don't want them to have that. I don't want them to grow up the way that I grew up. And so when I think about Pearl having that childhood, when I put myself in her position, I'm like, I wouldn't want my kid to have the childhood that I had growing up, because it was traumatizing and it sucked. So I don't feel for Pearl, because she could have.
She had a choice.
She did.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we all always have choices, and that's what human nature comes down to. That's what true crime comes down to. We all always have a choice.
And free will is a totally real thing. Free will is something that is inherently great. And she had the free will to not do this shit. And she did it. So I don't feel sympathy. And I never will feel sympathy. And if you think that we should feel sympathy for her, you can message me about it and I will talk to you about it. But I really do not think that she should have any sympathy, because she chose to do this shit to Gabriel, to an 8-year-old boy that he was innocent and loving and tried to make her love him. He wrote her notes about how much he loved her and how pretty he thought she was, and how much, you know, she was the best. Like, he tried to make her love him, and she still chose to do this to him. And that is not something that garners sympathy at all. I do not care. I can't imagine.
I feel no sympathy
treating a child like that. I can't. I don't know how you could come to that.
You're not a person at that point. You are a monster. She is a monster. I feel nothing for her.
She is a monster. Isaru is a monster. The DCFS was horrible and just let this...
They had all the signs, clearly. There are many people to blame. And if you disagree with us, then we don't fucking care.
Like, you can tell, like, how much this case, like
Skylar's crying.
Again. I've cried twice now. So if you want to argue with me about it, fucking...
Don't, because she'll cry, and I'll argue with you.
Because this case is, like, literally the thing that still affects me, no matter how much time has passed since it happened. It still affects me. And if you disagree with me, like, if you want to send me a message, fucking fine. But don't expect me to be nice to you about it or polite with you about it, because this case it's something that is really, it weighs on my heart really heavily.
It draws a line.
And I am super passionate about, and I want Gabriel's voice to be heard, because he deserves it. And if you think that something, like, if you think that Pearl was just, you know, she couldn't help it, and you want to message me about it, you can, but I will argue with you. And I will not dignify with me telling you that you were right at any point, because you're not. And I hate to say that, because I don't like disagreeing with people. I don't like being argumentative. But when it comes to this, I am. I won't stand for you trying to brush anything that happened to Gabriel as something that I don't even know how to phrase this. I'm so worked up right now.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, there's no excuse, basically. And we don't stand for it. And that's that. So let's continue.
Okay. Pearl tried to put all of the blame on Isaru, calling him a liar and that he killed her baby. which they had a brief moment of being tried at the same time, which is when they were arguing in the courtroom before she filed for the mental health thing, and then her trial got pushed back. But she was like calling him a liar and that he was the one who killed her baby, which I hate the fact that she was like, you killed my baby, because she did not see him as her baby.
Very icky, yeah. Ugh.
But there was clear physical evidence that not only did she watch Isaro beat Gabriel and do nothing to stop it, but also that she was a willing participant.
Clearly, yes.
They were put in holding cells next to each other, and there were audio recording devices placed in both cells. But unfortunately, the one in Isaro's didn't work. But there's clear audio of Pearl saying, "Did you tell them that it was an accidental death? When you were talking with did you say it was an accidental death? Do you know why they got that murder charge on me? Because you said I was inside the room." I said, "No, I wasn't inside the room. That I went inside the room in the beginning to put sweats on. Then me and Virginia went to the living room." So she was still like adamant, trying to get their stories lined up. She also said, "But they just don't know about the torture part. They're like, how in the hell did he get this? How in the hell did he get that?" And I was like, he admitted that he fell off his dirt bike. Remember that time he fell off his dirt bike? Like, trying to get Isaro to agree with her. Like, trying to make their stories match. And what gets really disgusting is that the audio turns sexual.
Great.
Which does lead to the question, was this a form of foreplay for them?
Yes.
And part of me truly believes it does.
I wouldn't doubt it at this point. If they're in fucking cells next to each other and it gets there, why the fuck wouldn't it get there at their own house?
Mm-hmm. And, like, if he was locked in that cupboard at the foot of their bed, they he saw them in the room every single night. And they probably did have sex on that bed where he could see them while he was bound and gagged in that cupboard.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. It's very bad.
Police searched the home after they were arrested and looked through their phones, and some of the texts gave evidence that they connected through mutually abusing Gabriel. April 15th, 2013. Isaro, what are you doing, babe? Pearl, still here with Gabe. Isaro, still in the cold water? That sucks for him. Because they would bathe him in freezing cold water. May 7th, 2013. Isaro, love you, babe. Stop giving him attention. Pearl, I am not. It just hurts. Isaro, I know. That's why I told you I'll handle him. May 9th, 2013. Isaro, what are you doing, babe? Pearl, looking at murder cases. And you, babe? In 2013, Aguirre was found guilty of both charges and received the death penalty. Fernandez pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was given a life sentence because her IQ was too low to justify sentencing her to death, and the guilty plea allowed her to avoid the death penalty. Although in California there is a hold on all convicts on death row, so no date has been set for Isaro Aguirre's execution yet.
Still?
Okay. I tried to look. I looked at like 4 different articles and they were like, no date has been set, no date has been set.
I get the problems with the death penalty. I do. In certain cases.
Yeah, I have this like giant moral dilemma with the death penalty because part of me is like, cause obviously I'm very against murder.
I think everyone should have a moral dilemma with the death penalty. Yes, that is the first tally.
Because I'm like, I'm very against murder. You shouldn't murder other people. But if someone is such a monster, and it is proven...
1,000%.
Yeah.
Sure. Like this?
Yeah.
Don't pay your taxes to keep them in jail.
Like that one guy who is on death row that, like, it's not clear whether or not he... committed the crime.
Yeah.
He should not be fucking sentenced to the death penalty because it's not 100% clear.
Especially if it's just based on color. Like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's an African-American man and they're like, he should be sentenced to the death penalty. Fucking no, he shouldn't. But Isaro Aguirre, I am not mad that he was sentenced to the death penalty. I think he deserves it. And you know what?
Yeah, I agree. come at us.
Like, I don't agree. It's a case-by-case thing for me. It is very case-by-case.
100%. As it should be. And based on evidence. Much like this has so much evidence.
Yeah. So, the impact statement made at the sentencing honestly did make me cry. Jennifer Garcia is the one who made the impact statement, and I know that if I try and talk about it, I will cry again. I've already cried twice, so I'll try not to cry a third time.
You're fine.
But I do, part of me, like, I do really think it's better to hear it coming from Jennifer Garcia, so if you want to check out episode 6 of the documentary, I would highly recommend you hearing the impact statement from her mouth, rather than from mine, like a completely... like 12th party person, like not even third party. Like I would recommend hearing it from her. Pearl made a statement as well, but I refuse to dignify that by reading her words because I don't fucking care that she's sorry. I don't care that she wants her family to forgive her. I don't care. I'm not gonna read her statement. I don't give a fuck about her statement. She is a horrible person. I don't care. Anywho,
it's fair. Yeah.
At the couple's sentencing, Judge George Lamelli, my king, took the rare step of commenting on the horrific crimes. And he even said, he was like, I usually try not to make extra comments, but I feel like this case deserves that. He described Pearl and Asato's actions and them as people as beyond animalistic. He also said, it goes without saying that the conduct was horrendous and inhumane and nothing short of evil. It's beyond animalistic because even animals know how to take care of their young. He also said, I hope you think about the pain you caused this child and that it tortures you.
Fuck yes.
And I was like, you go, George Lamelli. And then I just want to talk about some things that really stuck out to me about, like, things that happened, like, throughout the case, like, the things that really, like, hit me. People in the Palmdale community have a tree set up by the apartment complex where he lived in memoriam of him, and they leave things by the tree on Christmas and his birthday.
Oh.
Also, the first responders that night said that they would never forget what they saw. There was furniture in disarray, blood on the clothes, and blood and or rust rim around the sink drain, blood on the floor, a wooden baseball bat with the phrase Lo Berrejo y lo Cabrón se te quita en el panteón hand carved into it, which translates to the drunk and the bastard you took from the graveyard. And that is one of the weapons that I listed in, all the things that were used to torture Gabriel, and it is one of the weapons that also tested positive for Gabriel's blood, and it is believed to be one of the weapons that caused the subdural hematoma. The second search warrant after his death resulted in a criminalist DNA analyst coming to the scene. She marked everywhere she saw that she believed either was blood or had a high chance of being blood. She ran out of red tape to mark the scene and had to use yellow, ending the count upwards of 60 places in the apartment that had blood.
Oh my god.
And like I briefly talked about earlier, what is especially heartbreaking is that Gabriel had so much love for Pearl. He would always ask about her and worry about her when he was living with his grandparents, even after she had abandoned him. 2 weeks before his death, he had even done a Mother's Day project for Pearl, saying how much he loved her, how pretty she was, and that he promised he would be good.
God.
And in, part of the Mother's Day project for Jennifer Garcia's class, because that was the class he was in at the time, and his project was on his desk when she just found out that he was killed, and she had pictures of him holding up, it was a set of 3 pictures that was MOM, and you could still see all of the bruises and the marks on him, but he was still smiling and holding up the signs that spelled out MOM.
Because he was 8.
He was, and he had so much unconditional love for her, and she just still, I can't even process how you could do that to someone. I don't.
And the point is, you can never, because you're not a monster. That's the fact of the matter. She is an actual monster. Can I get you anything?
No, now we need to go through the timeline because it was a little confusing.
Okay. You're fine. If we need to take a moment, we can.
It's okay. I can do it.
Okay.
I can get through this. There's also two little boys that also, there's a 10-year-old named Anthony Asudro, I believe is his last name. And he was also 2 weeks after Gabriel's trial. He was found dead in his home under the same circumstances, having multiple DCFS visits. His being accused, being suspected of being gay, and was found dead in his home after abuse from his parents. There's also a 4-year-old boy named Noah Quattro who was also abused and found in his home after multiple DCFS visits, even after the Anthony case. So, even though Gabriel's case was so in the media and brought forward so much corruption, people still
fucking happened.
It just kept happening.
God damn it.
Now, if my phone will load, I'll go through the timeline, because it is a confusing little timeline. Just because there was so much space in between certain things that happened.
Yeah, no, you did good though.
Thank you. So on May 22nd was when the 911 called. They spent all that time in the hospital, him coding, resuscitating. Coma happened May 24th, 2013 is when he died. May 29th, 2013, his death triggered the LA County probe, which was where officials launched an investigation into how they handled the case. May 30th, 2013, the review of confidential documents reveals that the DCFS left Gabriel in care of his mother and Isadro despite the investigations. June 25th, 2013, the County Board of Supervisors votes to create a Blue Ribbon Commission to investigate the Child Welfare Agency. July 30th, 2013, social workers involved were fired. August 13th, 2013, Isadro and Pearl were accused and arrested, I believe, on that same day. On August 18th, 2014, his abuse was described to the grand jury testimony. July 1st, 2015, the prosecutors seek death penalty against the mother and the boyfriend. April 7th, 2016, the social workers were officially charged in the case. January 1st, 2017, the LA Sheriff's deputies were disciplined, but as we talked about, it didn't really happen. They were disciplined, but they weren't fired.
Like a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. November 15th, 2017, Isadro is convicted of being guilty of first-degree murder. And December 13th, 2017, the jurors vote for the death penalty, and they agreed that he should be sentenced to death. February 24th, 2018, Pearl pleads guilty. June 7th, 2018, Judge Lamelli sentences the mother to life in prison and Isadro to death. September 13th, 2018, the charges were upheld against the LA social workers, which is where we talked about where they tried to get it dismissed, and Lamelli was like, fuck no, we're not dismissing this.
Yeah.
March 3rd, 2019, that counselor we talked about testified she didn't report suspected abuse to authorities before Gabriel Fernandez was killed. May 22nd, 2019, after 2 suspected homophobic killings, so Gabriel, Anthony, audit finds broader issues within the LA child welfare, which is where they start investigating everything that went wrong and what could have been done better. December 11th, 2019, to bring a boy's murderers to justice, a prosecutor wrestled with his own childhood abuse. That's John Hitami, the prosecutor in both the People vs. Isadro Aguirre and the People vs. Pearl Hernandez. He actually did suffer from child abuse from his father, so he talked about that. January 8th, 2020, the appeals court throws out the case against the 4 social workers in the Gabriel Fernandez case. So yeah, literally a year ago, they threw out the case.
Yeah. Fuck.
Anyways, that's the case of Gabriel Fernandez.
Really rough.
I knew I wanted to talk about this case and tell people about it because his story needs to be heard. But at the same time, I knew I was going to be super emotional. So I'm sorry about that. But at the same time, like, as rough as it is, Gabriel's voice deserves to be heard. Because even after the trial with Isadora and Pearl, 2 kids died under the same circumstances. And things need to fucking change.
Yes, 100%. And don't apologize, Skylar.
I feel bad. I don't like crying. I don't like being, like, emotional and a crier, like, but I can't help it.
You're
with
a
this.
good human. You're fine.
I'm glad that's over. Like,
You did good. You did good.
thank you.
It was a hard case, for sure. But you did it really good, and you did it really professionally.
Even with the crying.
Even with the crying. Especially with the crying.
Oh, thank you. I tried.
Should we spin?
Yeah, let's go ahead and spin. Get this over with. I'll start making the drink wheel so that way we know what we're drinking next week. And maybe I'll remember, because apparently every week we do this, I forget what drink we're supposed to be drinking. Oh, do I need to spin it?
I think it's your turn.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's spin for our topic. So you get true crime again, I'm gonna fucking riot.
Yeah, that'd be rough.
No!
It's almost as bad.
It is almost as bad.
Okay, well, what's our drink? Okay. Is that a pair or separate?
Well, for don't like, we did separate. So do we want to do like for separate too?
We can do that. I think that's fine.
Okay. So our topic for next week is current events.
Hopefully we can make it not as depressing.
Yeah, I'll try and find something that's nice going on in the world, but we'll see.
But we'll see how you act, world. Get it together.
Fucking behave.
And then our drink.
A drink we like.
Which is a great change.
Yeah, so that's nice. I appreciate that.
So next week, Skylar will pick a drink that she likes. I'll pick a drink I like. And I guess we'll come talk about some current events. I don't know how that will go.
I don't even know what to do. There's so many fucking things going on. I'm like, I don't even understand.
Yeah, it's 2021, guys. It's a little crazy.
It's a little cray-cray.
But we'll be here.
And we'll at least have a drink we like.
And we thank you so much for listening.
What lame-ass catchphrase are you going to come up with this time?
Are you not going to plug anything?
Oh, yeah! Oh, right. So you can follow our podcast on Instagram and Twitter at SipInSpinPod.
Letter N.
That's our at. Yes, the letter N. Or email us if you have anything to share at SipIn, the letter N, spot. What?
Spa. We're a spa now, guys.
SipInSpinPod@gmail.com. And then if you want to talk to Brittany, who is the smart one out of us and is probably better at having a conversation with you, you can follow her at either Whimsy Dream or Whimsy Dreams, just whatever the fuck, because apparently people keep stealing her at.
It's true. It's in the description. I also have another podcast. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, what is it? Lit and...
It's lit.
It's
pod.
Lit Pod. Yeah. I'm excited for the first episode. I'm ready to listen to it. And then if you want to talk to me, all of my ats on literally anything, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, whatever the... TikTok, literally all my stuff is Twitch, YouTube. I don't Twitch or YouTube yet, but it's coming. Brittany does Twitch and YouTube, so definitely check her stuff out. My stuff isn't out yet, but all of my stuff is Gleam YKS. So if you just put Sky backwards, so it's Gleam YKS at literally everything.
Yeah. So thanks for sipping with us this week. we're sorry about this week.
Yeah, it was a rough one.
But we will sip with you next time.
God, I can't.
They need the cheer up, Skylar.
Yeah. You guys can have it this time, I guess.
Bye!